Testing. Testing.
Glass bullet.
Hi-yo! We've arrived. Oh, wait. Wings. Oh, we've arrived. Episode 3. Welcome to the Butterfly House podcast. I am Osaze Karaja. We are here recording on a Sunday, recording for the Wednesday. And people, we are stepping it up. We are upgrading our tech. What I mean by that, sorry, let me calm down. I'm really excited. Right now we're filming it. We are filming the podcast. You know, I got the camera going right now because, as I touched on in episode uno, we are in the era of infinite content. So yeah, I could just record the audio. That'd be nice, but I can't do that. I gotta make other clips to smash together, to throw on the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Twitters and the Facebooks and the YouTubes and the Vimeos and the Pornhub. Nah, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I figured why not? I have a tripod. I have a pretty cool setup, a space, so why not? So here we are. We'll see how this goes. Anywho, that's rude. I jumped right into talking about myself. How egotistical that is of me. No, I'm just kidding. But how are you? I guess the reason I don't really want to ask you is because I won't hear your answer anyway. But it still feels nice to ask. How are you? Are you okay? Are you having a decent week? Was your weekend solid? Did you survive the weekend? Boy, let me tell you. Last week, train wreck. Folks, as I mentioned in episode 1, I am a bipolar man who is currently battling a cancer diagnosis, trying to figure all that type of shit out. And predictably so, this leads to emotional roller coasters, you know, ups and downs, swinging left, swinging right, front, back, all around. And last week led me to kind of a low, especially on Thursday. It's funny. The last podcast I talked about how there's just something about Thursday because you're so close, but yet so far, you know, and then that kind of creates the domino effect of just kind of all your worries in general. So I found myself in a pretty sad place. So I decided to take off for Friday. Now, time to fill folks in. I do a few things. Music is obviously the thing that I'm pursuing. I have a business. I have a studio space. Glass Bullet Sound Company is the name of my songwriting and production firm. But I also work in the domestic violence field. I also work in the DA's office, helping in the clinical department with, you know, domestic violence and whatnot. So basically, I have a very trauma-focused, heavy job. I have, a stressful career pursuit as well with the whole music thing, because, boy, I tell you, that thing will drag you through the mud a little bit. And all the health shit going on, and constantly battling my issues with loneliness and heartbreak. So sometimes, you know, at night the demons get to me. Okay. But I decided to take time off on Friday. I woke up. I had a great workout. And then I took my ass to the beach. And I went to the beach and I chilled out, mellowed out. I had a belly full of shroomies. And I just watched the water. I had a call early on with my doctor. And it was just great, man. Like, I think it's the simple things. I think one of the things I learned from my cat, shout out to Archibald Crane. Oh yeah, I'm filming now, so Archie can join the podcast. Archie has this thing, and anyone who has a cat, or I guess if you have any kind of pet, I don't know, I can only speak as a cat owner. They have this thing about them that they just like to observe the world. which I think is, we can learn from that. We can pick up on that. You just kind of sit there and just watch, you know? So I took to the beach with Max, my guitar, a little blanket, and I sat there taking in the sights. Decided not to smoke that day, trying to get my lungs and vocal cords a little more cleansed, a little more clean, as we jumping into performance season, which I will get to in a moment. And yeah, I think this kind of begs the question: when you're sad, what do you do? When you're down, you know, what is your course of action? What is your recipe to work out all of those feelings? Now, I do believe that when people are offering advice in terms of this thing, of course they mean well. And I'm sure you can pick out little nuggets of what they say and adopt them into your own repertoire, so to speak. But I do think it's very important that we figure out what's the recipe that works best for us, you know? And that's going to probably look variably different for everybody. Something that I talk to my mother about. Not talk to her too often about, but my mom's funny. So my mom is this very mild-mannered, kind of, you know, gentle, subdued, really Christian woman. And I find that, you know, that's obviously going to impact how she goes about trying to remedy any of my pain. And the thing that I find always interesting with my mom is that she'll always recommend like watching or listening to something uplifting, right? Like, always. Which got me thinking about the idea of misery loves company. I was thinking about the fact that whenever I'm sad, sorrowful, mournful, down, I typically I gravitate towards sadder music, darker music, music with a little bit of angst. You know, given what I'm dealing with health-wise, I've been listening to a lot of songs that kind of ponder death and existence and mortality, right? And that line of thinking runs very counter to how my mom looks at the world. And you know, so I started thinking about why that is. Misery loves company. Why is it that, for anyone who relates to this, why is it, do you think, that when you're down and sad, you gravitate towards darker material? Because I think some folks on the other end of the spectrum, their argument would be, well, dude, if you're fucking sad, why are you going to listen to sad music? Isn't that going to make it worse? Logically, that makes sense. But I would argue it's a relatability point. It's like feeling like you have a friend who gets it, you know? Sometimes I think one of my favorite recent memes is the meme of, it's like a very poorly drawn picture of, like, it's a party going on. There's people in one corner dancing, there's people in the other corner dancing, and then there's one guy in the corner just kind of standing there with a cup, and then you can put whatever little, whatever ponderous thought in his fucking thought bubble. And sometimes that's kind of what trying to force myself to engage in light, positive content while I'm down feels like. It feels like going to a party, trying to show up to be the life of the party, but you just can't, dude. And you just feel like you're faking it. So I've been listening to a lot of songs that I won't necessarily say are sad, but they just have a lot more emotional weight to them. But I do think that there's room for like a positive song or something to kind of uplift you. You know, I think I won't discount it. It's just, there's so many ways to go about creating a thing. Whoa, mind-blowing thought. But no, what I mean by that is, like, if you're trying to communicate something uplifting, there's a way that you can go about it that could be more grounded and and real and confronting what the problem is. But then you also have art that is a lot more escapist, you know? I think, you know, as someone who's listened to a lot of hip hop in my years, I would say a lot of the rap that at least comes across the mainstream, it's built around escapism to a degree, where it's like, yeah, we're not really gonna worry about our problems right now. We're gonna focus on getting this money. We're gonna focus on fucking these bitches. We're gonna focus on, you know what I mean, fucking that nigga bitch. Like it's gonna take you out of that realm and put you in, like, you know, a place where you're not really thinking about your problems. And I'm still on the fence with how I feel about it. Perhaps there's just a time and a place for everything. And also I think music is so context based, meaning like your enjoyment of something will large in part hinder on your mood or your level of sobriety, or who the fuck is around you, or where you are, what kind of speakers are you know you're using, what just happened to you. You know, there's a lot of context that comes into play. When I think back to when I was in college, at the height of my alcoholism, I drank a ton because I hated the music on my campus. I went to a campus that was very white, and because of the whiteness, I'm assuming, pretty much every party would just have like jarring techno mixes, or you know, this was at like the height of the Pitbull Flow Rida Top 40 era, so it would be a lot of that kind of shit. Basically stuff that I don't like. So I was drinking in order to enjoy the music. So it's almost like, in order for me to like that kind of music, I needed to shift my context a little bit and get a little loosey-goosey, get a little saucy. Excuse me. And to be frank also, I was also drinking to help avoid a lot of the social awkwardness. I could be a socially awkward chap. But I don't know. It's kind of like, I've been thinking, can you OD on certain kinds of music? And I think this is like, it's a discussion that, I mean, I've been thinking about this conversation since the 90s. Well, what I mean by that is I've been aware of these kinds of conversations since about the 90s, meaning the discussions about art and media consumption and its effects on how you then go about your life. When I think of the most popular examples, it was like talking about video games. Remember when everyone was blaming everything on Grand Theft Auto? Grand Theft Auto 3 just came and just fucked the game up. And then the discussion becomes, are these objects of art and entertainment merely just objects of art and entertainment, or can they actually, I don't want to say, manipulate people or mold people into behaving differently? I don't know. But I think the younger me was more on the side of thinking, hell no. Why though? Because I wanted to, defend my video games. I didn't want anyone coming in there and yanking away my Nintendo 64. But as I'm getting older, I think I have to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, I feel like this shit does impact how we're molded personality-wise. And here's my reasoning. I think if you've ever asked yourself, has there ever been a piece of artwork that has positively impacted you? You ever seen a movie or heard an album that changed your life? I just put air quotes. People seeing me live can see the air quotes. You can't hear the air quotes, but there are air quotes here, right? It changed your life, or it saved your life, I can point to many bodies of work, albums and films that have somehow reached me in a way that made me feel seen or made me want to, behave differently for the better. Like, let's say, let's take Shawshank Redemption, right? Poor Mr. Andy Dufresne. Now, I just watched this movie last year, right? First time I ever saw it. And hold your horses. I know it's a classic, but come on. There's a lot of content out there. I watched it finally. Leave me alone. And I loved it. I adored it. And I think I watched it at a particularly low time. I mean, every time for me is a low time. But no. This time, though, something I needed some kind of pick-me-up, right? And that movie gets pretty dark. You go into jail. You're getting, let's say, broken and entered into, B&E while you're in jail. Wink, wink. And just dealing with the slow passage of time as you're walled off from society. And for Andy, it's worse for him because, he didn't even fucking do it. But how his story and how Morgan Freeman's story plays out, it did leave me with a lot of hope. Like that sentiment of, yeah, man, keep going. Or like albums can do that shit. I think, it's cliche to say at this point, but Kid Cudi has saved a lot of people's lives just because of how transparent he was about his mental health struggles. Kanye, part of why Kanye is the shit, is because when I think of emotionally vulnerable rappers that were not afraid to discuss being insecure, he was one of those folks, right? And then that kind of stuff does have an impact on you. So then the question becomes, well, if it can do positive stuff, I mean, logically, could it do negative stuff? Now, what I'm about to say, people, I am not coming at this from a place of shade or hate or judgment. I'm not trying to disparage this gentleman, and I'm not trying to get blacklisted or blackballed. But I want to bring up the idea of, Future's toxicity in music. Now, it's at the point where, like, if you scroll on any social media platform, one of the first things that people bring up when they talk about Future's work is him being a quote, quote, toxic king. And then you'll see like people on the timeline basically reveling in toxic behavior. Now, granted, I want to start by saying this is not Future's fault. Like, he can obviously make the kind of music he wants. This is a bigger discussion about how people adopt certain energy and messaging and outlooks from whatever music that they're hearing. Basically, people being kind of easily influenced and swayed. And it's so much so to the point that you can have people who hear something or see something and immediately want to embody it. I thought of this really funny scenario where, like, because we all have toxic friends. We all have those buddies of ours who be on the fuckery. And I can't help but wondering this scenario where, like, all right, they're in the club, right? You're in the club getting jiggy, right? Oh, Jesus, I sound fucking old. That did not sound cool. No, you're in the club getting lit. No, wait, better. You're in the function getting lit, right? And then you're there, turned the fuck up, and then you turn and you see Future there. Oh shit. And for whatever reason, he's sitting there alone, no security, no bad biddies around him, and you can literally just walk up to him and talk to him, right? So say you walk up to Mr. Future and you're like, hey, what's going on, man? And then you start, because of what you think of as his brand and the main energy that you get from his work, you immediately try to relate to him by talking about something awful you did to a woman, right? And I just think, what if Future then sits back and he's like, whoa, dude, too far. That is terrible. I'm only an entertainer, and I'm joking. I think women must be treated with the utmost respect and valued and cherished. And I can't just help but think about the jaw drop moment for that person. And then if they would then shift their behavior based on that. Now, people, is this a bigger commentary on just the impact of celebrities on our society? You know, one thing that I thought was really cool, and first of all, I want to pause and talk about how flawlessly I'm segueing from these random tangents, but they're not random anymore because I'm getting some through lines, baby. I'm getting good at this. Celebrity culture and its impact on how people behave, right? Think about it. It's one of the main things behind marketing, right? You know, that's the reason why you get Renee Zellweger to hold the bottle of Coca-Cola. Why? Because you want people to see Renee Zellweger holding the bottle of Coca-Cola and they say, holy fuck, Renee Zellweger is holding the bottle of Coca-Cola. I should be holding a bottle of Coca-Cola. And then you go out and buy it. It's trying to, you know, it's like some kind of interesting form of peer pressure, but then motherfuckers ain't your peers. So let's call it superior pressure. Coined a new term. And this is where conspiracy theory SARS is coming up. Conspiracy theory SARS. This is why I think the Kanye West MAGA era was kind of brilliant. Hear me out. Hear me out. Don't turn it off. Don't boo. Don't throw tomatoes because you can't hit me with the tomatoes. Anyway, I think the MAGA era, I wish I could ask Kanye this. It felt like a big performance art piece about removing the weight of your celebrity influence. And what I mean by that is, why the fuck should you think about, like, why should you care what Kanye thinks? Meaning, just because he has a different opinion, or just because he has a particular opinion, does not mean you also have to hold the same opinion. Furthermore, you shouldn't be devastated, and I touched on this last week, you shouldn't be devastated when a celebrity does have a different opinion than you do. I think it puts you in the space to now think, okay, what are my actual values? You know, what actually matters to me? And then can I separate that from, you know, the values and opinions of someone else? And I think, you know, when you have like your favorite celebrities, I think a lot of us want to hang out with them, right? You want to hang out with these people. And because you want to hang out with these people, you want to be able to get along with these people, you know? Like, very few people can imagine hanging out in a studio session with one of their favorite musicians. And, you know, the musician turns to them and it's like, oh, like as they're playing one of the songs that they're just working on, and they're like, yo, what do you think of that? And if you thought it was fucking garbage, you thought it was terrible, you probably wouldn't say that. Why not? Because you want to be liked. People want to be liked. Or specifically, we want to be liked by people we like. Which doesn't seem so bad. Makes sense. Logical. But I just think that it can go to a fault, you know. You can't be a fucking people pleaser. And that's kind of why I appreciate the MAGA era. I appreciate a lot of just Kanye's, you know, loose cannon moments in general, because I think, you know, as long as you ain't hurting nobody, you voicing your difference of opinion, you having a different perspective, you just being yourself, I think that probably leads to a better sense of self, you know, at least a bare minimum base level of high self-esteem to a degree, because you trust yourself, you know. There's this lovely, and I'm going to butcher the quote, so I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it. I was watching this interview with Kate Bush, who is my favorite artist, and they asked her if, classic question you ask artists, like, do you play your stuff for friends and fam, and how do you respond to criticism of your work? Like, if you play something for your family member and they don't like it, how do you respond? And she basically was like, well, if they offer a certain kind of criticism, of course I will, listen to it, as in hear it, think about it. But if I ultimately don't agree with the criticism or the critique or the comment, then I just leave it as is. I don't change it. And then she says, because if I did, then I would just become them. I love that. And I think in all of like these artistic journeys, because we're operating in a space that gives a big fuck about validation and, needing validation to a degree, for your livelihood, it does put you in a space where you start to wonder, which opinions should I take on? Do I have opinions that are wrong? Which opinions are detrimental? Which ones are beneficial? And you just have all these voices bouncing around in your head. And it's almost like, I feel like the best asset a creative person can have is, or anyone. Yeah. But speaking from a creative standpoint, the best asset you can have is a sense of trust of your sense of quality. Like really thinking, do you know what is good? And then if you don't fully maybe want to trust yourself all the way, having confidants that understand your vision, or they understand the vision you're trying to sculpt. Because then, them offering input and insight, it's going to be aligned with the road that you yourself are trying to pave. Does that make sense? Sorry, I hit the mic with my hat. But yeah, does that make sense? Because like, say for example, you want to make hardcore metal music, right? You want to make hard fucking core metal music. And if you're playing those records for people who grew up on, America and Willie Nelson and fucking, ska music or folk music, like stuff that's just not going to be in that wheelhouse of heavy metal, then their input might not really be super helpful for you. Or rather, they might also just not really see where you're coming from with your vision, And then at that point, if they are offering criticisms or critiques, or if they just straight up say they hate it, I think that makes it easier for you not to take it personally, because you know where they're coming from. You're coming from a different island, my friend, so they might not speak the same language as you, man. That was terribly cringe. And I think you have to keep that in mind. Also, on the subject of Kate Bush, folks, I can actually speak on this now. I am very, 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 very pleased to see how much shine Kate Bush is getting right now, obviously due to how prevalent her record is in terms of a plot point in the new Stranger Things season. Running Up That Hill came out in 1985. Kate Bush single, written and produced by her. First single off of the Hounds of Love album. And I believe it peaked in the US back then at number 30. But now it's currently in the top 10 on the Billboard chart. Highest position it's ever been in, almost 40 years later. The album itself, Hounds of Love, I believe is in the top 10 of the top 200 in terms of albums. And it's really nice to see, as someone who is, dare I say, obsessed with that lady. And why I think it's inspirational is because Kate Bush, and I don't use this term reductively, but she's very, very weird. I think she's brilliant, but I think she does take a lot of creative risks that can position her as an acquired taste for some people. And I understand it. It's a part of why, like, I'm sometimes hesitant to show people her work, because I'm sensitive. I'm very sensitive about that lady. So, people not getting it, although I get it, it still kind of makes me a little sad. So I'm hoping that, this is kind of a gateway for people to get more, I don't know, invested in her work, because I think she's a brilliant lady who communicates a lot of magic via her work, a lot of great stories, a lot of compelling songwriting approaches. And we need more women in music production. So that's also kind of a great story. But I just think it's cool seeing how her just simply sticking to her guns, at the time, perhaps she was a little underappreciated. People do consider her a legend, and her DNA is in a lot of, current musicians such as Florence and the Machine and FKA Twigs and Bjork and, a bunch of other folks. But, her sticking to her guns, look where it's leading her right now, up to 40 years later. And I think that says that you literally never know when something you made is going to find some kind of new, let's call it zeitgeist resonance. You never know. And that's why you just got to keep cooking, man. As we're all down here just trying to figure it out and find our own way through the storm, you just got to lock into what makes you, and I guess trust it. I read her biography, might have been 2 years ago, and her parents were a big part of that. I think having parents that encourage you to be yourself, the parents that water your seed instead of trying to replant your garden, I think it just does so much for helping you bloom into the real you and being most confident in the real you. So I think we can all take that away from Katie, I'm going to pause for 1 second and do a time check. Wow, I'm getting really good at fucking talking my ass off, guys. It's 31 minutes. So we're almost done. But I want to bring up one final point that's completely unrelated to the other shit. As I've been trying to do these podcasts consistently and finagle to get them on, Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff, the questions keep coming up of what is the genre of this podcast? And questions about genre and target demographics and all that kind of stuff, they always rub me the wrong way. Just because I don't fucking know. Like, this is going to be a podcast, right, where we talk music, we talk society. I'm a weird person, so things will come out weirder and goofy. And it's just kind of this, it's like a cornucopia of vibe. There's different fucking fruits in the basket. Don't box me in. Don't box me in. I refuse. But I got to put the label on the thing though. So like some of them, they let me say society and culture, which I put, okay, it's society and culture. I'll take it. Sometimes it's comedy just because, I don't know. I think I'm a funny chap, but that's too much pressure. I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to make you laugh. I'm just being me. If you giggle, I'm into it. But yeah, trying to figure that shit out gets complicated. And then, with music too, it gets fucking rough. Like trying to think about target demographics and all this stuff. And why do we have to think about this stuff, folks? Because it's all about capitalism and marketing. It's like, we're just trying to sell ourselves, man. I'm a fucking dancing monkey. I'm up here just trying to groove for people, entertain people, and trying to figure it all out, figure out the weeds, and get this to whoever I can get it to that gets impacted by it in the best possible ways. I don't know. Pray for me. But I hope you had a good time in the Butterfly House today. I will be back next week. I hope you're back next week. If you're not, well, I still wish you well anyway, I guess. And good luck. Oh, fuck. I have a show on Friday, June 17th. It's in Long Island City. Check my Instagram for more details. Yeah. Peace.